7 September 1995, Erfurt, Thüringen. In the back room of a sports shop, on a cardboard box of promotional tracksuits, a man in late middle age scribbles a line he would not have dared to say aloud in 1978. I once chose who was worthy of the state's chemicals. Now I choose which tracksuit they should buy. Short sentences. A dangerous sentence. Compressed history in a confession. It is not a battlefield. It is the arithmetic of choices in a Germany that learned to count calories, rooms, categories, and medals. It is a civilian war. It begins in rubble. 18 April 1945, Leipzig. The Americans reach the city. The boy is 13. His name is Karl. He will become a sports teacher before he becomes a salesman. He will learn to speak quietly before he learns to sell loudly. He writes later in a notebook, 18 April. The tanks came down, Jarnali. We watched from the cellar window. Mutter tied a white sheet to a broom. Father was gone since January, last letter from the Vistula. I thought the war would end with trumpets. It ended with a notice on a wall, curfew 2100. The diary fragment is thin. There is a ration stamp pasted over a word. The paper smells of damp. In occupation reports of the U.S. Army, 20 April, the city is marked as secured. The report notes widespread destruction of infrastructure, water supply intermittent, food situation precarious. The mathematics of survival starts again, this time with pencils and rubber stamps. The streets are broken. Women lift brick upon brick until their hands bleed. Trümmerfrauen. The word appears in a city council memo of June 1945 and in an oral history recorded much later. We cleaned with bare hands. We carried in handcarts. We found teeth in the ash. The rubble is physical. It is also moral. Under it, people bury things quickly. Party pins, posters, photographs, names. Americans post rules. No weapons, no Nazi insignia. Surrender of radios. Curfew. The boy watches a soldier hand a chocolate bar to a girl and makes a calculation. Chocolate equals a day without hunger. Cigarettes are money. Lucky strikes become the currency of 1945. The arithmetic is simple. A loaf for 2 packs, a pair of shoes for 10. In the back of a cafe on Karl Liebknecht Straße, a man trades a silver spoon for 4 camels and a wedge of butter. He signs no contract. Cigarettes function as emergency currency. An Allied intelligence summary notes, with stability superior to Reichsmark. The Reichsmark is a ghost. Spring turns to summer. The Americans do not stay. The papers call it the withdrawal to the agreed occupation zones. In late June, American officers fold maps, shake hands with officers wearing red stars, and leave. Leipzig will be Soviet. The boy's mother finds this out when a truck with unfamiliar markings parks outside their building and a soldier with a heavy accent knocks on the door. The sheet at the window becomes a bland curtain. The rules change. Posters change. The arithmetic changes again. 2. July 1945, the second occupation. Curfew remains, but the fear shifts shape. Now the rumors wear different uniforms. Rape is whispered and not written down. In the boy's notebook, a blank page stands between 29 June and 8 July. In later years, in an interview catalogued in the Deutsche Nationalbibliothek, he says, "We lived close to the sports grounds. In the evenings it was quiet. You could hear boots. You learned to be small. Many learned. Women carry bricks by day and carry fear by night." The Red Army installs command posts. NKVD units set up offices. Shops carry signs in Cyrillic chalk. Soldiers requisition rooms. The requisitions have stamps. The new authorities arrest people. Former Nazi officials, Gestapo men, businessmen, sometimes anyone whose name is written down by an informant. There is a list. There are many lists. One goes from Karl's address to the corner shop and back. The mathematics of guilt begins with handwriting. In a cinema converted into a meeting hall, a German functionary reads a questionnaire aloud to a group of men who answer 9 in repetitive rhythm. Were you a member of the NSDAP? Were you a leader of a Nazi organization? Did you hold any political office? The Fragebogen comes from Allied Control Council directives. In the American and British zones to the west, the Sprüchkammern will classify 3.6 million people into 5 categories: Hauptschuldige, major offenders; Belastet, offenders; Minder Belastet, Hauptschuldige; Minder Belastet, lesser offenders; Mitlaufer followers; Entlastet, exonerated. In the Soviet zone, there are committees, but there are also trains eastward and special camps. The categories are mutable. The system needs stability more than thoroughness. Karl's father does not return. Whether he lies under the ice of the Vistula or under a pine near Kistrin remains unknown. The mathematics of absence is not a ledger. It is an ache that lasts a lifetime and is inherited by children. The city is full of absences. Men in grey uniforms vanish into camps. Their desks will be filled again. Anti-fascist committees appoint new administrators in factories and schools, some fresh, some familiar. A teacher that had a pin is now a socialist. He wears a different pin. Autumn 1945. Refugees arrive. Not refugees yet in American parlance, they are Germans, expelled from Silesia, East Prussia, the Sudetenland. They come with sacks and strollers, on carts and on trains. In Leipzig's Bayerischer Bahnhof, a woman with 2 children and a sewing machine waits under a sign that reads, Umsiedler melden sich hier. They are now resettlers. By spring 1946, more than 1 million have reached Saxony and Thuringia. Millions more flood into the western zones. The rooms in Karl's building acquire thin walls built from scavenged wood. We got an attic corner, 2 beds, 4 ration cards, and expellees' letter notes, dated through January 1946, cancelled in Halle. The letter survives in a family album. The arithmetic of rooms: a family of 4 uses 40 square meters. A family of 8 will use 20. Tempers become a rationed commodity. Locals call them names. They speak with different vowels. They do not belong and cannot go back to anywhere. Their belongings fit into a trunk and a memory. In the Soviet zone, the official language is class. The term Umsiedler is replaced, then suppressed. In the West, committees form to represent the Vertriebene. They speak often about right and seldom about wrong. The arithmetic is uneven. Winter 1946-47, the hunger winter. Temperatures drop. The grain harvest has been poor. Coal is scarce. Trains stop. The boy has turned 15. His fingers crack bleeding carrying briquettes. His mother makes soup from potato peels and coffee from acorns. Today we had 900 calories, she writes in a penciled note on a ration card stub. Official rations in many places fall below 1,500 calories per day. For heavy laborers, they are higher on paper. The black market fills the arithmetic gap. Cigarettes buy fat. Bicycles roll into the countryside on Hamsterfahrten. People trade furniture for eggs. The British write in an occupation report, urban populations increasingly reliant on illicit barter, morale brittle. The Americans draw comparative charts. The Soviets print slogans. Everyone shivers. Across the new borders, displaced persons, Jews, Poles, Ukrainians, Balts, Italians, Frenchmen, and many more, live in camps near German towns. Some camps are former barracks, some are parts of former camps with new signs. Near Landsberg and Feldafing in Bavaria, in Kassel and Frankfurt in Hesse, survivors of camps and slave labor mills trade in a currency of information. Who survived? Who was last seen? Which cousin moved to Palestine? Which aunt returned to Pied and found her apartment occupied by strangers. In the Soviet zone, repatriation is often the imperative. In early 1946, a Red Army truck convoy drives past Leipzig carrying silent women who do not look out the windows. The boy watches them pass. Later, he hears the story of a neighbor, a woman who worked in the kitchen of a weapons factory. They were girls from Kharkiv, she said, in an oral history recorded in 1992. They were thin. They would not look at us. Sometimes we gave them potato skins. After the Americans came, they were gone. In German streets, a few phrases become common. Wir haben nichts gewusst. We didn't know. Some did not know. Many did not ask to know. The arithmetic of denial is a subtraction of details. 1947. In the American zone, denazification reaches its bureaucratic height. 13 million Fragebogen distributed. More than 3.6 million cases heard. By 1948, most Germans in the West will be classified as suspensions. A few years in prison for those whose crimes can be proven. Many return to their desks. The mathematics of guilt is weighted by necessity. A civil service cannot be built from scratch. Teachers teach again. Judges judge again. Engineers build again. In Eastern special camps, German prisoners die of typhus. NKVD files in the Bundesarchiv record numbers without faces. The Soviet zone calls itself anti-fascist. The label does not carry footnotes. The boy attends a meeting at school where a party organizer explains that anti-fascism will build a new Germany. The examples are simple. The truths are selective. 1948. Currency reform in the Western zones produces a miracle of paper turning into goods. The Deutsche Mark appears. Shelves fill. Black market traders lose their leverage. In the East, a reform follows with a different outcome. The mark of the German Economic Commission has a different face. The border in Berlin becomes a line on a map and a line in pantries. The arithmetic of money divides neighborhoods. In the West, the Marshall Plan brings sacks of flour stamped with foreign words. ERP, European Recovery Program. A boy in Leipzig hears about it from an aunt in Kassel who writes, "Butter has returned. There is American powdered milk. It tastes like paint, but it is milk." The East rebuilds by dismantling. Machinery and rails are taken as reparations. Soviet AGs, state-owned companies, run large factories. In offices in Berlin, Karlshorst, quotas are drawn. In Leipzig, a teacher draws other quotas on a chalkboard. Shot puts, lap times, records. 1952. Karl is 20. He has long legs and a will to manage his body into a future. The Deutsche Hochschule für Körperkultur, DHFK, in Leipzig, opens careers. Sport is peace. Sport is character, says a red banner in the entry hall. He studies anatomy and pedagogy. He learns that the state will reward power measured in centimeters and seconds. He marries a woman who works in a textile cooperative. They move into a two-room flat with a view of a smokestack. The smokestack releases a predictable smoke. Stability smells like coal and cabbage. He becomes a sports teacher in a KJS Kinder- und Jugendersportschule. It is a special school for the talented, where adolescence is regimented. His office has a calendar with competitions and a file drawer with forms. The forms carry numbers, codes, stamps. In the back of the drawer there is a thin folder labeled UM, Unterstützende Mittel. Supporting means he does not write the word out loud for a long time. He does not have to. Everyone who needs to know knows the code. The mathematic of medals becomes a national formula. In the 1960s and 1970s, the German Democratic Republic, the name itself a promise, decides that international sports will be its loudest voice. It is a country with few words allowed and many slogans printed. Medals will speak for it. They will speak for it. They will speak in Montreal, in Moscow, in Seoul. To make them speak, the Ministry for State Security watches and the State Plan 1425 supplies. Files in the BSUU, the authority that will later hold Stasi records, contain tables, age, weight, dosage, code names, blue pills, oral turinabol. A note from 1974 reads, Athletes 1416, Gradual T.1425 Introduction, Monitoring by Dr. H. The doctors and the teachers are part of a system that is both clinical and vague. We did it because the others did it, a coach will say to a journalist years later. It is not a lie. It is not a justification. It is the arithmetic that functionaries use when they count away pieces of themselves. He does not see himself as a villain. He sees himself as a teacher. He sees girls so fast they seem to float. He sees boys jumping like deer. He sees potential and an adversary. The adversary's flag is West German one day, American another. He carries no grudge. He carries a chart. A 1978 team memo requests that Trainer K, the letter is not his, but he reads it with familiarity. Select from Group A, those with robust liver values. He knows where they take the blood. He knows how to talk to parents. He knows how not to write important things down. Sometimes the past intrudes in the present as a scent. When he opens a vial, he thinks of the sweet smell of acorn coffee. He thinks of the hunger winter. He thinks, this is the price we pay for not being hungry. In 1961, the border is made of concrete. The wall slices Berlin, and the country hardens. Sport becomes a tool. Schools produce times. Coaches produce bodies. The mathematics of medals per capita becomes a propaganda point. In a sober cabinet in the Bundesarchiv, a brittle pamphlet records a conversation among SED officials. It is an arithmetic of pride. With 17 million citizens, we lead the world per capita. They do not write down the side effects. He sees side effects. A girl grows a shadow of hair on her chin and cries in the locker room. A boy's tendons snap like dry twigs. Livers produce quiet warnings. Doctors write viral infection on clinic notes. Trainers write modified training load. The Stasi writes confident cadre and files it under his name. He signs party lists. He hands out awards. He does not sleep badly. He sleeps efficiently. He tells himself and others that he is building futures. The arithmetic of compromise is usually a sum of small steps. At home, they have a child. They name him Thomas. Schoolbooks in Thomas's school show photographs of rubble with captions that emphasize victory over fascism, not complicity with it. It is a choice and a policy. The GDR's memory politics focus on anti-fascist heroes, on executed communists, on noble resistors. They leave names of other victims on the margins. The West chooses a different simplification at first. In the 1950s, schoolbooks that are careful, often drab, more focused on rebuilding than on reckoning. Public commemorations emphasize suffering, of bombed cities, of soldiers, of expellees. The arithmetic of the 1950s balances on the assertion that most were Mitläufer and few were canny criminals. It is not wrong in numbers. It fails in names. In 1967, in the West, students begin to ask their professors what they did in 1933. In the East, students learn that such questions are unnecessary because the state has answered them already. In 1968, in Frankfurt and Berlin, slogans appear. In Leipzig, slogans always appear and never question too much. The boy-turned-man teaches sprints and throws in the prescribed way. He likes Bach, avoids poetry. He fills out forms. He writes false substances as vitamin complex X on a training sheet. He watches Montreal on television with his colleagues. When the GDR anthem plays, they stand, hands behind backs. We did our job, someone says. He feels the warmth of achievement. He carries it home like a loaf. He is not unaware of others' suffering. In 1972, Munich hosts the Olympics. He watches the Black September attack unfold on a television in a training camp common room and feels the cold of it. Afterward, at a youth meet in Hungary, a West German coach with a scar over his eye asks him, "How do you keep your girls so stable?" The question floats. He answers in platitudes. He knows the real answer cannot be told. Files in Stasi archives note that he is reliable. They note also that he once expressed skepticism about a dosage in a private conversation. The file writer advises an educational conversation. It happens. It is brief. The system is not interested in his soul, only his compliance. He complies. Meanwhile, the people around him continue their civilian war. The expellees in the East become silent locals. On the edges of towns, in prefabricated blocks, new factories produce appliances and yarn. A statistical yearbook shows rising numbers. The numbers are accurate within their realm. The realm is bounded by walls and by language. The West's Wirtschaftswunder accelerates. Volkswagen, BASF, Siemens, new factories in the Ruhr make a loud hum. Marshall Plan loans are paid off. The East hears about them as if through a wall of wool. People in the East hope for Trabants in 10 years, while their cousins in the West trade VWs every 3. The arithmetic of envy is a kind of physics. It pulls gently, constantly. 1977. The boy he trained into a national junior champion is called to an adult team. The doctor writes UM. The mother signs a paper she cannot read fully. There is a sense of track gravel in his mouth, though he has not run for years. He goes home and opens a box with his father's last letter. The paper is famously thin. "Do not trust the arithmetic you are told," the letter almost says. It does not say that. It says in careful script, Grüß, Wielmut. It is 1944. It comes from Poland. He has read it 100 times. He puts it back. He ages into middle management. He is called Herr Trainer. He is summoned to meetings with men who have soft hands and heavy rings. He watches words become categories. Major offenders, offenders, lesser offenders, followers, exonerated. That was the old system in the West. In the East, the categories are different, comrade. Reliability, class origin, political vigilance. He inhabits a scale with 5 marks, where 5 is good. He receives a 4 once. He makes amends. 1985, autumn. He writes in his notebook, "At the stadium, the flag hangs limp. Students are tired. Not physically. The music is tired. The slogans peel. He has not felt fear for years, only a persistent caution. It is the caution of breaking eggs into a pan and making sure the neighbor does not hear you curse at the state while you salt them. The caution of not saying too loudly that the oranges in Intershop taste better than the ones in VEB. It is the caution of a lifetime." 1989. The arithmetic collapses. People on the street in Leipzig. Monday demonstrations. Wir sind das Volk. He goes out on a Monday once. He stands behind a lamppost, hands deep in his pockets. He looks like a man waiting for a bus. He watches faces. He hears prayers. He hears fear turn into a rhythm. The rhythm becomes a river. He goes home early and pretends he saw nothing. "I needed my job," he will say later. "I had nothing else I knew how to do." The wall opens. Teachers gather in smoky rooms to listen to the words Treuhand and Abwicklung. Dissolution. Files are seized. Some are burned. The sound of a paper torn is small. The mathematics saved and destroyed in those days will define the next decade for many. He is called in for a conversation with officials of a new state. 1991. Federal Republic. Leipzig is in Saxony in the same way, but not in the same country. There is a new coat of arms in the school office. He receives a letter with a return address in Bonn. It is written in bureaucratic German, the language of decisions. aufgrund ihrer Tätigkeit im Rahmen des staatlichen Dopingprogramms. Wir sehen von einer weiteren Beschäftigung als Trainer im öffentlichen Dienst ab. Words jump and then freeze. He imagines himself like a cut-out figure in a book. He falls flat. He finds work teaching calisthenics in a private gym for 3 months. He sells vacuum cleaners for 6 months. He hates them. He is 59. He walks past a sports shop with bright glass. It smells of new rubber. A young man in a clean t-shirt with a swoosh hands him a flyer for a job. He writes in his notebook, "Interview. We value your experience with sports." They do not want his past. They want his posture and his knowledge of bodies. He is grateful. He is ashamed of his gratitude. He will stand in a mall and tell men which tracksuit breathes best. He is good at it. He enjoys the certainty of small choices. This color or that one. This cut over that. Bodies are simpler when you dress them, not train them. 1992-1994. Trials begin for men with names like his, Manfred Ewald, Manfred Heppner. The courtroom air is stale and important. He is a witness once. He sits behind a microphone and says, "I did what was expected. I regret." He means it. He watches a girl he once trained, now a woman with a voice like sand, say in another court, "They gave me pills and called them vitamins. I cannot have children." He is a quiet man and cannot speak to her afterward. He does not know what to say. He writes later, "I could say, we didn't know. It would be a theft. We knew enough." The arithmetic of guilt returns with different categories now: criminally culpable, administratively cleansed, morally complicated. Who goes to prison? Who returns to a desk? Who sells tracksuits? In cities in the West, memorials change. The 1980s and 1990s bring Stolperstein brass stumbling stones set into the sidewalk outside former Jewish homes. In the East, long-suppressed histories of the Holodomor and Katyn and GDR prison cells now emerge in public. School books change again. Photographs include perpetrators and victims. Bombing is still remembered. Expulsions are still commemorated. But the arithmetic gains new rows and columns. It becomes a table that can hold more than one number. He reads his son's school books. They speak about the camps in more pages, with names and images that are harder to look at. They speak about the GDR in chapters that do not sound like the assembly hall. He signs a petition to keep the sports school gym open. He fails. He takes a train to Berlin and walks through the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. The stones of it remind him of rubble, but these stones are intentional and clean. Children run between them. Laughter makes the sound of escape. He stands between two tall slabs and thinks about running track as a boy around piles of brick. He thinks about categories. He thinks about his father, who never returned, and about the girls whose voices dropped from soprano to alto. He thinks about whose grief is public, whose private. The occupation reports, the denazification files, the Allied intelligence summaries, the Stasi memos, the Treuhand decisions. The paper mountain that mirrored the rubble mountain is now accessible to citizens and scholars. He does not read his Stasi file. He is afraid to see the handwriting of someone he once had over for soup. He is also afraid that it will be too thin, that his life will resist archivization, that the arithmetic that added up to him will be too simple on paper and too complex in his chest. He lives with this fear. It is modest and persistent. He sells tracksuits well. He tells a young man, "This will breathe in summer." He tells a woman, "This will make you look fast." He picks up a box of shoes and his lower back complains. He misses the smell of a chalked circle. He does not miss the smell of a drug vial. When he passes an apothecary, he looks at the window displays. They show vitamins in bright orange. He laughs once, alone, at the thought of vitamins. In the evenings he writes. He does not call it a diary, he calls it notizen. He writes dates and places. He writes short sentences for things that are heavy. He writes long paragraphs for things that are light. He writes about April 1945 and the sheet on the broom. He writes about January 1947 and the potato peel soup. He writes about a girl in 1979 who hugged him after a personal best and did not know the chemical that took 3 seconds off her time. He writes about the man with the knife scar asking him a question. He leaves out names. He leaves in verbs. He does not go to memorial events often. The language there is correct and distant. He is wary of speeches. He likes documents. He visits the Bundesarchiv once and reads a Spruchkammer file of a man with his name. But of course a different man, classified Mitläufer, fined 50 Reichsmark, sent home. He feels a wash of useless empathy. He thinks the arithmetic of guilt in that office was not designed for mine. He is sensitive to arithmetic now. He counts the ways he does not say everything. He counts the ways he cannot say anything differently. He has remained in Leipzig all his life except for a necessary visit to Erfurt, where the sports shop created a promotional event in the autumn of 1995. A brand manager from Frankfurt shakes his hand in front of 20 boxes. There is a banner that promises air. There is a microphone he does not want. This is Karl, the manager says. He knows sports. In the back room he writes the sentence. He hands it to no one. He stows it in his jacket like it might detonate. The film of his life, if it were projected, would be mostly of rooms. Kitchens with steam, gymnasiums with chalk dust, offices with files, trains with foggy windows, waiting rooms with coats, streets with posters, markets with barter, courts with microphones, a boy carrying a bucket, a man carrying a bucket, a man carrying a box of shoes. The people he has known took on categories imposed from above. Expellee, DP, Mitläufer, Täter, Opfer, Verdächtig, Zuverlässig. They also took on categories of their own in private, hungry, guilty, proud, bitter, pragmatic. He worked within a category system built to simplify action. He became a functionary of those simplifications. He is not an exception. He is a representative sample. He was selected for his selection skills. He became a selector of bodies. He now selects products. He has become smaller in the world's eyes and perhaps more precise. He feels both relieved and shamed by this precision. The immediate aftermath of war forms him. He watches Trümmerfrauen make streets passable. He watches DPs pass. He hears church bells ring again. He hears speeches in town squares. He sees ration cards stamped with dates and names. He sees cigarettes stacked like gold. He sees a coal pile behind a factory wall and plans mentally how to steal 5 briquettes. He reads his mother's letter to an uncle in Kassel asking for a package. The package arrives 6 months late, opened and sealed again. Inside, coffee, sugar, a fleshy scent of a different world. He drinks 1 cup and is awake all night. He remembers the taste in 1974 when he sips a thermos coffee on a bus to a meet in Prague. He learned from denazification that systems care about categories that can be counted. He learned from expulsion that suffering moves in crowds long after guns are silent. He learned from DPs that German towns could be near camps without touching them emotionally for a long time. He learned from the economy that money can make shelves fill and emptiness disappear. He learned from the GDR that a state can build a memory architecture with holes. He learned from 1989 that paper kingdoms can fall. He learned from 1990 that a new state will build new files in which to sort the old state. He learned from retail that the gaze from a cashier is a polite form of power. He has not learned how to tell a linear story without backtracking. He writes in his notebook to impose sequence. May 1945, day after capitulation. Uncle Ernst goes to City Hall to register as alive. He stands in line for 2 hours. A woman says her husband died in Stalingrad. She says it like a list item. The official writes on her paper, widow, June 1945. American soldier gives me chocolate. The taste is huge. I see his cheeks are pitted. He is not a hero. He is a man who sees. July 1945. The new soldiers speak Russian. I do not know a word. I learn yes and no. They take a room. We sleep in the kitchen. Mutter says they will leave. She does not say when. January 1947. We burn piano keys in the stove. I think of Bach, and then I think of heat. The key cracks and hisses. April 1952. DHFK. The anatomy lab smells like preservative and cabbage rolls from the canteen. We learn muscle attachments. This will be a place where politics cannot enter. This is untrue within a year. October 1961. Wall. Uncle Ernst had planned to visit Frankfurt. He does not go. He grows quiet. July 1976. Montreal. Television in the canteen. The anthem plays. We stand. I write down the times for the 100 mean. I write down that S ran like wind. I do not write down what she swallowed. I have not written that down anywhere yet. November 1989. I walk and stop. The city sounds different. Bells, the people have different mouths. They speak more air. December 1991. Letter from Bonn. We regret. I do not regret being stopped. I regret the silence. September 1995. Erfurt. A man from Frankfurt tells me which adjectives to use. Air. Freedom. Street. He is 30. He has hair like a commercial. He speaks as if spilling pearls. I could hate him. I do not. He is a person you meet in peace. The human story sits under the archival story. One without the other is propaganda. One without the other is gossip. Together they form a ledger of a civilian fight. The accounts include debits of solace and credits of shame. In the immediate aftermath, Carl's mother traded a wedding ring for a sack of potatoes. In the long aftermath, Carl traded professional belief for a salary. In the brief aftermath of 1989, he traded the box marked for a box of tracksuits. Each trade had an exchange rate set by forces that his vote could not adjust for decades. The mathematics of power works on a scale most people cannot shift. They can only tally. Many Germans in those years had contact with victims. Some looked and looked away. Some looked and spoke. Some looked and spoke 30 years later to a camera in a kitchen under a clock. Carl's neighbor, the one from the weapons factory kitchen, told her story in 1992 to a tape recorder held by a woman in her 20s who was writing a thesis. The neighbor cried once, a short cry that sounded like a cough. The transcript sits in an archive box labeled Oral Histories, Leipzig. It can be read by anyone who asks, on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 16 hours. Access requires a form. There is always a form. The system in the West stabilized itself by moving quickly through categories. Mitläufer absorbed many. Under Allied occupation, thoroughness would have broken the society. The arithmetic of justice collided with the arithmetic of administration. The East stabilized itself by declaring innocence and making dissent a crime. It taught the children to recite that fascists were elsewhere. It made selection a virtue. It made bodies into proofs. Both systems curated memory. Both created men like Carl, conscientious, compromised, trying to live by better and worse reasons. He hears sometimes a younger person say they were all guilty. He hears sometimes an older person say we were all victims. He knows both sentences are a relief. He refuses relief. He writes in his notebook, "We were many things and we changed. The truth is not smooth. It is a street of broken bricks." He is old. He walks to the bakery and buys brat. He uses euro coins now, which feel foreign and clean. He misses the heft of the Deutschmark. He does not miss any of the socialist currencies. He often remembers his mother's soft plea to a store clerk in 1947. Für das Kind. He was the kind. He was the excuse. He became someone else's excuse. On a late morning in October 1995, he stands before a small crowd in a sports shop in Erfurt and speaks politely about shoes. He explains air pockets. He is believable. Afterwards, in the back room, he writes the dangerous, honest sentence on a box. He writes it for himself. He writes it to measure. He writes it to capture the entire story without writing every page. He writes it because he knows the war he fought was against simplification and comfort. He writes it because the arithmetic of his life has left him with numbers that do not cancel out. He closes the notebook. He returns to the sales floor. He tells a boy that running is mostly practice. He is right. He omits the rest. He lives with what he leaves out. He folds the line into his